6 Tough Questions for Believers. Part 1. The answers are based on common discussions in theology, philosophy, and apologetics. These are questions often raised by skeptics, atheists, philosophers, or even believers grappling with doubt. They don't disprove Christianity, because faith involves elements beyond empirical proof, but they can be intellectually challenging and have prompted extensive debate, books, and responses from Christian thinkers over the years. The tough questions, grouped by category, with a brief explanation of why they're challenging, and a good overview of common Christian responses. These are drawn from philosophical and theological discourse, not my personal views. Christianity is diverse, so answers vary by denomination. Question 1. The problem of evil and suffering. If God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good, why does evil and suffering exist in the world, such as natural disasters, child cancer, genocides? Wouldn't a loving God prevent it? Why this question is tough. This is one of the oldest philosophical challenges and hits at the emotional core of faith. It questions God's character or existence. Response 1. Free will and human choice. A central Christian argument is that God created humans with free will, the ability to choose between good and evil. This freedom is essential for genuine love, moral growth, and relationships. Without it, we'd be like robots, incapable of true obedience or devotion to God. Evil entered the world through human choices, starting with the fall in the Garden of Eden recorded in Genesis 3. Adam and Eve's disobedience introduced sin, which corrupted humanity and the world, leading to moral evil like murder and theft, and natural evil such as diseases and disasters as consequences. Christian thinkers like Augustine argued that evil isn't a thing God created, but rather the absence of good, resulting from turning away from God. Response 2. The role of Satan and spiritual forces. Christianity teaches that evil also stems from spiritual rebellion. Satan and the fallen angels chose to oppose God, introducing temptation and chaos into creation, referenced in Isaiah 14:12-15 and Ezekiel 28:12-19. This doesn't mean God is powerless. Rather, he permits this cosmic struggle as part of a larger plan, where evil serves to highlight goodness, test faith, and ultimately lead to victory through Jesus Christ. Response 3. Hardship can refine the character. Suffering can refine character, build empathy, and draw people closer to God. Like a parent allowing a child to learn from mistakes, disease and disasters aren't punishments, but opportunities for spiritual growth. Just as fire purifies gold, trials can make us more like Christ. Romans 5:3-5. Think of the story of Job, who emerged stronger in faith after immense loss. Response 4. The greater good defense. God allows temporary evil for an ultimate greater good that we may not fully see now. For example, Jesus' crucifixion, the ultimate evil, led to salvation for humanity. Natural disasters might foster community, innovation, or reliance on God. God weaves even tragedy into his redemptive plan, as noted in this verse, Genesis 50:20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." In eternity, we'll understand how it all fits. This aligns with the idea that God's perspective is eternal, while ours is limited, as revealed in Isaiah 55:8-9. Most importantly, Christianity doesn't claim evil is an illusion, or that everything happens for a reason in a trite way. Instead, it points to Jesus as God's response. He suffered with us and promises to end all evil in the new creation. Points to consider. If someone uses evil to challenge faith, such as, "How can a good God allow this?" respond empathetically, acknowledge the pain, share a theological framework, and point to Jesus' suffering as evidence of God's love. Remember, atheism doesn't solve evil. It just removes hope of ultimate justice. Christianity offers meaning and resolution. Question 2. Biblical contradictions and historical accuracy. How do you reconcile apparent contradictions in the Bible, such as differing accounts of Jesus' genealogy in Matthew and Luke, or the order of creation in Genesis 1 verses 2? Or, why does archaeology lack support for some biblical timelines? Why this is a tough question. The Bible is a cornerstone of Christianity, but critics argue it's a human document with errors, redactions, or mythological elements, and while some findings in archaeology support Bible, there is currently a lack of support for some biblical accounts. Many view the Bible as inspired, but not inerrant in a literal sense. Apologists argue contradictions are often resolvable through context, translation issues, or harmonization, for example. The genealogies trace different lines, legal versus biological. Response 1. Understanding the nature of the Bible. Context matters. Christians often emphasize that the Bible isn't a single book, but a collection of 66 books written over 1,500 years by about 40 authors in different genres, from history to poetry to prophecy to letters, and in multiple original languages. Apparent contradictions can arise from misreading genre or context. For example, poetic or metaphorical language isn't meant to be literal. The Bible uses ancient literary styles, like hyperbole or rounded numbers, which modern readers might misinterpret as errors. Response 2. Addressing apparent contradictions. Christians typically respond by attempting to harmonize passages, showing how they can be reconciled when viewed together. Examine the full context and original languages. Translations can introduce seeming inconsistencies. For instance, the Gospels report Jesus' last words differently as recorded in Matthew 27:46 and John 19:30. Harmonization suggests these are complementary, not contradictory. Jesus spoke multiple times during the crucifixion. Another example, the number of angels at Jesus' tomb varies by gospel, from 1 angel in Matthew and Mark to 2 angels in Luke and John. This could reflect different emphases or eyewitness perspectives, not errors, similar to how people recall events differently. Recognize complementary accounts. The Bible often presents multiple viewpoints for a fuller picture. Example: the creation accounts in Genesis 1 and 2 aren't sequential timelines but thematic overviews. Genesis 1 is chronological, Genesis 2 focuses on humanity. Minor discrepancies do not alter the core message. A Christian would argue that this doesn't undermine the Bible's reliability, as no doctrine hinges on such details. Manuscript reliability. The Bible has more ancient manuscripts, over 5,800 documents for the New Testament alone, and much more than any other ancient text, with minimal variations. Response 3. Addressing possible historical inaccuracies. Critics often point to archaeology, external records, or science as evidence of errors. Christians counter by citing examples. There are Old Testament examples. The existence of figures like King David confirmed by the Assyrian conquests, matching Babylonian records. The Hittites, once thought fictional, were verified by digs in modern Turkey. And there are New Testament examples. Details like Pontius Pilate's role, confirmed by a 1961 discovery of an inscription, or the Pool of Bethesda, excavated in Jerusalem, both support historical accuracy. The rapid spread of Christianity is hard to explain without a historical resurrection event. The question of the Exodus story. Skeptics question the lack of Egyptian records of mass slave escapes, but Christians note that ancient records were often more propaganda, as pharaohs didn't record defeats. Some evidence, like the Merneptah stele, mentioning the Jewish people around 1200 BC, supports an early Israelite presence. If evidence seems lacking, Christians might say absence of proof isn't proof of absence. Archaeology is ongoing, and many disproven claims have been vindicated later, such as the city of Jericho's walls. Recent discovery. Question 3. Science versus faith, regarding evolution and the age of the earth. How does Christianity square with scientific consensus, like evolution by natural selection, or the universe being billions of years old, when Genesis describes a 6-day creation? Why this question is tough. Modern science has transformed our understanding of the world, and literal interpretations of the Bible can seem at odds with evidence from biology, geology, and cosmology. The goal is often to harmonize faith and reason without compromising core beliefs like God's sovereignty as creator. Response 1. Evolution versus creation. The challenge. Evolutionary theory suggests life developed over millions of years through gradual changes, and view does seemingly conflict with Genesis 1-2's account of God creating in 6 days. There are 3 levels of Christian response to these types of challenges. The Bible as literal approach, also known as the young earth defense, the old earth creation defense, theistic creation, and the God-controlled evolution defense. I will cover each of these viewpoints in the following responses. The Christian responses. Young earth creationism. The literal view. Argue for a recent creation, 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, with literal 24-hour days. This view points out perceived gaps in the fossil record and lack of any evidence of transitional species as the incredible complexity of life. Example: evolution assumes unguided processes, but Genesis shows God's intentional design. Old Earth creationism. Accept an ancient Earth theory, but reject macroevolution. God created progressively over long periods, days as eras. Evolution explains adaptation within kinds, but God initiated life miraculously at key points. Theistic evolution, evolutionary creationism. God used evolution as his method. Science describes the mechanism. Genesis reveals the creator. Just as God uses natural processes like gravity, he could use evolution. Notes: You should highlight intelligent design demonstrated in fine-tuning of the universe as evidence of a creator, even if evolution is true. Reference Romans 1:20. Creation reveals God's qualities. Response 2. The age of the Earth. The scientific challenge. Scientific dating methods such as radiometric dating and cosmic microwave background estimate the Earth at 4.5 billion years old and the universe at 13.8 billion, versus a literal reading of Genesis genealogies suggesting approximately 6,000 years. Christian responses. The young Earth view argue that dating methods are flawed, assuming constant decay rates, ignoring a global flood's impact. The Bible's timeline is reliable, science must align with it. Events like Noah's flood could explain rapid geological changes. The old Earth view interpret days in Genesis as symbolic or long ages. The Hebrew word yom, meaning day, can also mean an era, as in the day of the Lord. Science confirms the Bible's big picture of an ordered creation. The gap theory suggests a gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, allowing for an ancient Earth before a recreation. Key talking point. You should point out that the Bible doesn't specify the Earth's age explicitly. Just as Jesus used parables, Genesis might use figurative language to convey truth. Response 3. Dinosaurs vs. Genesis account. The challenge. Fossils show dinosaurs existed 65-250 million years ago, extinct long before humans, while Genesis doesn't mention them and implies a recent creation with all animals. Christian responses. The young Earth view. Dinosaurs coexisted with humans as referenced in Bible as Behemoth or Leviathan in Job 40:41. They died out post-flood. Also, soft tissue found in dinosaur bones suggests they're not millions of years old. A young Earth fits. The old Earth view. Dinosaurs lived and went extinct in earlier eras, before God created humans on day 6. Genesis focuses on humanity's story. It doesn't detail every creature. God created dinosaurs as part of his vast plan. The theistic evolution view. Dinosaurs evolved and went extinct as part of God's evolutionary process. The extinction event was a natural part of creation's unfolding, under God's providence. This is part 1 of Tough Questions. Stay tuned for more answers. If you found this interesting or helpful, please like and subscribe. May God bless your spiritual journey.